A wondrous morning to everyone, and especially to Sir Altovar. It is with great pleasure to present to you our topic regarding the continuation of the Renaissance period. And before we start, allow me to unravel the subtopics that will be tackled throughout our discussion. First, we'll go through the life and the works of the two famous artists from the Renaissance period, first of which is Donatello, to be discussed to you by Mr. De Castro and Miss Curachea. Then, to be followed by Michaelangelo, that will be explained to you by Miss Eroles and Mr. De Chavez.
Hi!
Lastly, we'll also try to answer the question on how the Renaissance period had ended, which will be discussed by yours truly and Miss Estrellana.
Hello, I am teacher Hannah.
Now, I give on the podium to Mr. De Castro to give us some insights about the life of Donatello.
Good morning, everyone. Today, I'm going to tell you about the life of one of the most famous and skilled Renaissance artists. He is no other than Donato di Niccolo di Beto Bardi, or also known as Donatello. He is known as the master of sculpture in both marble and bronze, one of the greatest of all Italian Renaissance artists. His sculpted figures were some of the first since antiquity to represent anatomy, though some late works were slightly exaggerated to suggest sense of individuality. His friends and family gave him the nickname Donatello. He was born in Florence, Italy in 1386. He was the son of Niccolo di Beto Bardi, a member of the Florentine Wool Combers Guild, which gave a young Donatello a status as the son of a craftsman and was placed on a path of working in the trades. At the early stage of his career, he learned stone carving from one of the sculptors working for the Cathedral of Florence in 1400s, meaning that he was just only 14 years old by that time. And 4 years later, when he turned 18, between 1404 and 1407, he became a member of the workshop of Lorenzo Ghiberti, a sculptor in bronze who in 1402 had won the competition for the doors of baptistery. During this time, he was practicing his skills, and this is all where it started, where he created his own artworks and sculptures. But even though Donatello had a great career as an artist during the Renaissance period, he never married, and he seems to have been a man of simple taste, meaning that woman is not just a part of his life, he is just solely dedicated for his passion. Maybe we can say that for him, artworks is just more worthy than just the value of a woman. The cause of Donatello's death is not widely written about, but it is known that the last years of his life were spent designing twin bronze pulpits for San Lorenzo. He died at the age of 78 or 79. With this, we can really say that his passion and love for artworks is just endless, though his last years were spent doing it. His love for it is just wow. Well, I badly want to talk about all of his artworks and sculptures, but it will be brought to you by Miss Kyla Curachea. That's all about the life of Donatello. Thank you.
Hi, thank you Sir De Castro, and now I'm going to present or discuss Donatello's artworks and sculpture. The first one is Crucifixion for the year of 1406 to 1409. David for the year of 1408 to 1409. San Giovanni Evangelista for the year of 1408 to 1415. Saint Mark for the year of 1411 to 1413. The next one, Saint George for the year of 1415 to 1417. Statue of Saint George in Orsanmichele, Florence for the year of 1416. Zucconi, statue of the prophet Habakkuk for the year of 1425. The Feast of Herod for the year of 1427. The next slide is Annunciation Cavalcanti for the year of 1435. Saint John the Baptist for the year of 1438. David for the year of 1440. Statue of Saint George the Baptist in the Duomo di Siena for the year of 1457. For the next artworks, equestrian statue of Guatemala at Padua for the year of 1453. Magdalene Penitent for the year of 1453 to 1455. Virgin and the Child with Four Angels for the year of 1456. Judith and Holofernes for the year of 1460. For the next slide, sculpture of David 1408 to 1409 and David 1440. David is a title of two statues of the biblical hero David by the Italian early Renaissance sculptor Donatello. They consist an early work in marble of a clothed figure for the year of 1408 to 1409 and a far more famous bronze figure that is nude except for helmet and boots, and dates to the 1440s or later. Both are now in the Museo Nacional del Bargello in Florence. For the additional, David is both physically delicate and remarkably effeminate. The head has been said to have been inspired by classical sculpture of Antinous, a favorite of Hadrian, renowned for his beauty. The statue side, contrasted with a large sword in hand, shows that David has overcome Goliath by physical power but through God. The boy's nakedness for this implies the idea of the presence of God, contrasting the youth with a heavily armored giant. David is presented uncircumcised, which is customary for male nudes in Italian Renaissance art. For this next slide are the St. George for the year of 1457 to 1417, and the statue of St. George in Orsamana-Calli, Florence for the year of 1416. And it says that St. George is a marble sculpture by Donatello. It is one of 14 sculptures commissioned by the guilds of Florence to decorate the external niches of the Orsamana-Calli Church. St. George was commissioned by the Guild of the Armorers and Swordsmakers. The art de Corazai e Spaday. St. George is sculptured as a young, brave, determined, strong man in armor. He is not standing in contrapposto, although his right leg is turned to the same angle as his shield. Visibly his weight in his own both legs. St. George's eyes are looking up in his face, indicate some kinds of anxiety and emotionally before attacking the dragon. His eyebrows are knit together and there are wrinkles on his forehead. Thank you, and now I'm giving the platform to Ms. Eroles to discuss about the topic of Michaelangelo. Thank you!
Hi guys, so good morning. So for today we will be discussing about Michelangelo. Who was Michelangelo? Michelangelo di Lodovico Buonarroti Simoni was a painter, sculptor, architect, and poet. He widely considered as brilliant artist in Italian Renaissance. Why he considers as brilliant artist in the Renaissance period? Because his work demonstrated about psychological insight, physical realism, and intensity never before seen. So, Michelangelo born on March 6, 1475 in Naples, Italy. He had 4 brothers, and his father is ministry, and his mother stayed at home with the kids. Now, when Michelangelo was infant, he became pretty sick. So, he ended up living with the stonecutter. So, he often held by a nervy charge to watch the painters. His family delasted art and felt like that is disgrace of the family. It was definitely not a sustainable professional job for a man. I think once Michelangelo started to make a name for himself as an artist back home, as you can tell, since Michaelangelo signed his letter name as Michelangelo Sculpture in Rome. After realizing that Michelangelo had some artistic talent, his dad encouraged him to find an apprenticeship where he could learn more about art. He went from a painter workshop, studying with a powerful elite family, in Flores, the Medici family. Did I mention that they are the ruler of the forest? Yes, they are. So, working with them, giving Michelangelo a privilege, one of those was being studied. The dead bodies slowed his passion to understand the human anatomy. Fortunately, the stance and nothingness of that experience started to make him sick enough of that. Just few short years later, when Michelangelo was only 25 years old, it was apparent he had a black belt in sculpture. After relocating to home, one of the cardinals with the Catholic Church commissioned him to sculpture. Michelangelo died on February 18, 1564. To continue the discussion, here's Mr. Chavez.
Thank you, Ma'am Eroles. Hi, good morning everyone. I'm Sir Darius de Chavez, and here are some of the famous artworks of Michelangelo. First on the list is the Madonna of the Stairs, was made in 1490 and one of the first sculpture of Michelangelo. The next is Bacchus from 1496 to 97. Bacchus is the Roman god of wine. And the third is the Pieta Rondanini. It was made in 1552 to 64, and this was the last sculpture of Michelangelo. Next, here are some of the saints that sculptured by Michelangelo: Saints Peter and Paul, Saint Pius, and Saint Gregory, and many more. And it can be seen in Siena Cathedral in Italy. Next. And now, this is one of the most famous artworks of Michelangelo. The painting in the ceiling and in the altar wall of the Sistine Chapel in Vatican. The Last Judgment. The Last Judgment is a fresco made by the Italian Renaissance painter Michaelangelo, covering the whole altar wall of the Sistine Chapel in Vatican City. It is a depiction of the second coming of Christ and the final and eternal judgment by God of all humanity. Sistine Chapel. Sistine Chapel is the papal chapel in the Vatican Palace that was erected in 1473 to 81 by the architect Giovanni dei Dolci for Pope Sixtus IV. And here the papal conclave is held where a new pope is elected. Next. Here is a picture of the famous ceiling of the Sistine Chapel, and one of the main spots in the painting is what we call the creation of Adam. And I want to share with you, this is one story about the creation of Adam. As you can see in the picture, the forefinger of God the Father is stretched out as if reaching for Adam's hand. But the hand of Adam has no interest to reach God, meaning God always extends His hand and mercy to us humans, but we are the one who decides if we accept and reach the hand and mercy of God. Next, the Deposition. The Deposition was made from 1547 to 55. This piece is not only sculpturally complex and indicative of Michelangelo's genius, but it carries layers of meaning and has sparked multiple interpretations. In it, we see Christ the moment after the deposition or the being taken down from the cross from his crucifixion. He is falling into the arms of his mother, the Blessed Virgin Mary, and Mary Magdalene. Next. This is the Pieta, one of the most famous artworks of Michelangelo, and it known all over the world. And La Pieta or the Piety from 1498 to 1499, means pity or compassion, and represent Mary sorrowfully contemplating to the dead body of her son which she hold on her lap. It is housed in St. Peter Basilica in Vatican. It is the first of a number of works of the same theme by the artist. With the use of pyramidal composition, the statue was commissioned for the French Cardinal Jean de Belheres, who was a representative in Rome. And lastly, the entombment. It was made from 1500s to 01. The entombment is an unfinished painting by Michaelangelo of the placing of the body of Jesus in the garden tomb. Apart from Jesus, there is many disagreement over the identity of the various other figures represented in the painting The Entombment. There were many unfinished parts in the painting The Entombment, such as the cloak of the missing virgin, and the painting was in short supply, and it would have required quantities of the expensive lapis lazuli, and which could be the reason why this had for completion, which explained the fact as to why it was unfinished. As you can see, these three last images that I presented to you are the story of Christ after his death, from his deposition from the cross, to the mourning of his mother, and to his entombment. These precious artworks help us to deepen our faith and maybe help our historians to study the history of Christ, the Renaissance, and the art itself, of course, and Michaelangelo himself. And here is Mr. Cabesuelas to discuss the next topic.
Thank you, Mr. De Chavez, for that wonderful insight. Now that we all know the life and works of Donatello and Michelangelo, let us now try to answer the question on how did the Renaissance period end. But before that, there still begs the question, how did it all begin? The Middle Ages was seen by many historians as a period of cultural decline and turmoil. Hence, it is also called the Dark Ages. This belief was also shared by many Renaissance thinkers, whom at the time sought to revitalize the classical Greek and Roman art, philosophy, and literature. Hence, the Renaissance also pertains to the rebirth of the classical Hellenic thinking. It has spanned from 14th up to the 17th century. Now, the people of this time had witnessed the flourishing of some of the most greatest historical figures and humans in history, along with the expansion of opening global trade. It is also said that at this period was the bridge between the Middle Ages and the modern period. It is also at this time that the European economy had sought to experience a rapid expansion, with trade routes, population, technology advancing to a far greater extent. And in the Renaissance period, history has also witnessed the rise of the new class called the bourgeoisie, or the merchant middle class. They soon would emerge to become the rich and influential class that deposes the feudal order. These new classes would become the driving factor for why the Renaissance have expanded exponentially in the aspect of arts, architecture, and philosophy. For one, they have the social mobility and wealth to support and commission artists, sculptors, and engineers. One of the prime examples for this are the influential Medici family from Italy. This family is heavily attributed for why the Renaissance materialized in the first place. And in the 14th century, there is also the rise of the cultural movement taking place known as humanism. Humanism is the belief that centers on human beings and not faith as the attention of life. It believes that people should value more on human accomplishments and heavily emphasizes on secularism. Secularism is the stray from religion from being the primary aspect of life. Francesco Petrarch is the main proponent and the founder of Renaissance humanism. Now that we have come to realize how the Renaissance period had started, Miss Estrellana will then explain to you what have transpired that led to its decline.
The Italian Renaissance was one of the most exciting periods in human civilization. We witnessed a great flourishing of art, architecture, philosophy, literature, and politics. But how it ended? So here, I am going to discuss with you some several factors that led Renaissance end. First is the invasion of Florence in 1494 and the rise of Spain. The French invaded Italy to conquer the Kingdom of Naples. Their invasion resulted in several decades of war. The Italian city-states were still technically independent, but they were under the control of Spanish. The Spanish control resulted in a loss of political and individual freedom, and this dealt blow to the Renaissance as artists and thinkers were unable to create the work they wanted or to truly express their own ideas and opinions. Second is the Florence economic decline. Italy is a vast network of trade routes. The riches may enable the artists to fund the work of their. However, when Christopher Columbus discovered the America, the economy went on a steep decline. New trade was established. This led to less money being spent on art in Italy and had a negative impact on the Renaissance period. Third is the impact of Counter-Reformation. The Counter-Reformation have a dramatic impact on artists, scientists, and writers in Italy because they no longer discuss or express their views freely. They were afraid in case they offended the Catholic Church. Girolamo Savonarola was an Italian Dominican friar who ruled Florence. He forced artists to recommit to the church to avoid attracting the attention of the Inquisition. This led to Italy falling behind intellectually and artistically as an Italian artist working in an environment that was repressive. All in all, the Renaissance was one of the most important historical epochs. It produced a culture that created great works of art and provided the world with a humanist view on life and encouraged individualism and the use of reason. However, the economic decline meant that there was less money for the arts and learning. The Spanish came to dominate the city-states, and this meant that artists had less freedom of expression. Finally, the Counter-Reformation, by enforcing Catholic orthodoxy, meant that artists, writers, thinkers were afraid to be as daring or as original as they had been in the past. These factors are some reason why Renaissance period fall or ended.